So I fully admit that this is my third time filming this. Hopefully, they say 3 times a charm. So I want to talk about anti-Asian racism and racism towards Asians in Canada and the US. And the first thing I want to talk about is why we don't speak out more against racism. A lot of this goes back to historically, when you think back to, in the US, the 1875 Page Act, which barred Chinese women from coming to America, and then the Exclusion Act of 1882, and then in Canada, we had the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1923. Because of that, the government was always trying to find a reason to not let Chinese folks stay in the country. So for our parents and for a lot of the older generations, the reason why a lot of them don't speak out against racism is because their thinking is, don't give them a reason to not let you stay here. And that's true when you think about it. If the government is trying to find any way to get you to not stay and not settle, you're gonna do everything that you need to do in order to ensure you can stay. So you'll work hard, you'll put your head down, you'll contribute to the economy, you'll pay taxes, you'll start a restaurant business that serves the white Canadian community, and that's what you would do. The other reason is the collectivist culture versus the individualistic culture. In the collectivist culture, and this is very common in so many Asian families, is you put the society and the family before you put yourself. So the needs of everyone else before you. In North America, you have the more individualistic culture, where you put yourself over society. So because of that, when it comes to doing what's best for the community or for society or for your family, it means not drawing attention to yourself, not being an individual and speaking out against racism, because that puts a spotlight on you. So that's a big part of it too. I see a lot more women, I see this a lot in my Asian sisters, this feeling or this need to have to put everyone else before you. So you may not speak out about things like violence or assault or sexual violence or any of those things if they ever happen to you, because you don't want to draw attention to yourself, but also you put the needs of the family before you. Especially in what I've noticed in other generations, and even sort of more right now, is putting boys and men before ourselves. The model minority myth and code switching. So the model minority, a concept created through white supremacy that said Asians are more successful than any other ethnic group. But really what it's done is it's meant to be a wedge created between Asians and Black folks in order to create a kind of hierarchy. And what this does, and it's a product of white supremacy, is it keeps racialized communities fighting each other. It's the reason why you see a lot of anti-Blackness in Asian communities. It's the reason why, too, there's so much fighting and there's so much racism between Asians and between Black folks. I see this a lot. There's a lot of tension, but really, the bigger, higher structure that is stopping us from making any change is white supremacy. And so the model minority myth made us feel like we were special and that we were better, and we're not. The other thing the model minority myth does, which is harmful, is Asians have the biggest wealth gap. And when I'm talking about Asians, I mean like Asians of different backgrounds. So like Southeast Asians, like Vietnamese, Cambodian, a lot of them tend to be from lower socioeconomic classes and deal with more struggle and more barriers in order to get financial success, than opposed to like Chinese, like myself, where we don't have as many obstacles stacked up against us. Still doesn't mean that our issues aren't valid, but when people say the model minority means Asians are just smarter and harder working than everyone else, a lot of that is a stereotype that's just been put on us, which I don't think really helps us. So when it comes to talking about our parents' experiences, a lot of it is also, and we've seen in the attacks when they had called the 911, that there is a language barrier. There's a language barrier in being able to express yourself. I see it in my own family members too. It's why when they go and they see a doctor or dietitian, they choose Chinese doctors and dietitians if they can, because they speak their language and they understand them. The other thing I want to say is there's also an element of, I think, shame culture, is if you draw attention to yourself in a negative way, then somehow you're kind of bringing in shame. And I really hope that it's something that we can remove and we can stop seeing that way, because it really prevents people, especially women, from speaking out about some things that they've experienced, whether it's sexual violence, whether it's abuse, whether it's any of those things. I know it happens, and I know it's happened a lot too amongst a lot of my Asian sisters, including myself, and we're conditioned to not talk about it. But talking about it is part of healing. So what to do next? I'm an older millennial. I have the privilege to be able to speak out about a lot more things than my parents did. I've been educated in the school system. I know a lot of you have too, you as well. You start by speaking out and by telling your story, because this is the only way that we can create change. And I know some of you are already doing this work. Like, I really see it a lot in like millennials and like Gen Z and some of the Gen Xers too. My progressive Gen X friends, I see you speaking out about things. That is also showing leadership, being able to step forward and tell your story and to stand out against injustice. This is why we choose courage over comfort. Use your platform to speak out. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because other people want to hear them. And if it's your very first time speaking out, like, I am so proud of you, because I know how hard that is. And then if it's your 200th or 10,000th time speaking out, I'm proud of you too. So keep doing the work. Don't be afraid to speak out. I will support you. If you want to message me and you need support, I promise that I will support you. So don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you for listening, and this is how we're going to create change.